So we were talking about trade and tariffs. So let's see if we can wrap this up in 5 minutes. The equation that I just put on the table was essentially, I think the president's done a really good job of saying that that Chinese government or any other, now he's going after the Europeans, some of our allies, and even Canada, I was listening to this morning, and they're saying they are doing a job on us and I'm not going to let it go on very much longer, so I'm going to slap some tariffs on it. That's my way of saying what he's doing. But there is one person on this panel who does business internationally, and that's Mr. Nemeth.
Yes.
So what do you think about all this,
Very
Mike?
concerning.
You're concerned?
Very concerning.
Okay.
The three main international markets for us are Canada, Europe, Asia. There's a perception that if you're a small company, there's more risk to do business with you. We fight that by doing things better than our bigger competitors. And I can tell you in Canada, we feel there's, as you use the term, economic nationalism. They prefer to deal with Canadian firms to a great extent. I think we've been making a lot of progress in Europe, and we have we travel there 2 or 3 times a year, and it takes a long time to get there. I'm afraid that the ability to do business in Europe is going to be very much negatively impacted by if this tariff and trade war starts. And obviously Asia, Japan particularly, because they're tied in with our economy. So it's one thing to bluff, as you said, it's another thing to follow through. And once you follow through, I think people get emotional, or countries get emotional, and if we're going to have economic nationalism, they're going to step up and match our economic nationalism. It's going to...
Mark, let me tell you where I find some solace in this, and I don't know whether or not this is an oversimplification or not, but as a layman to this area, trade and tariffs, okay? I don't know as much about it as you do and Peter does, but I know enough that what sounds to me reasonable sounds reasonable, right? And when the president says those kinds of things, it sounds good to me at the political level. Look, all things have got to be fair. But let's talk a bit about the business you're doing. Would you say that you're involved in fair trade or free trade?
I think my business is basically centered in the aerospace business,
Right.
and that's an international business. You have Pratt & Whitney does an enormous amount of business overseas.
Right.
We follow them, and so I think it's fair and free because there is not a problem with them selling engines on the Airbus at all.
Right.
So I don't buy this, at least from my perspective in my business, but I can understand the appeal to Trump's base, but my reality is that it's not he's solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Okay. So he has a solution looking for a problem. Okay. So Peter, hold on, just let me ask you this question, then you can build on your own response, right? The other part of me that overly simplifies this issue would be, wait, let me understand this now. Canada is really, I listened to their prime minister this morning and I'm saying to myself, this prime minister is going to pick a fight with the United States of America and actually expects to win. In other words, the equation would be, who needs who more? Is there any country that we need more than ourselves, Pete?
We need each other, and somebody doesn't pick a fight and win. Somebody picks a fight and both sides lose. You know, this is a lose-lose proposition if played out, because what you do is you create false senses of security and protection for industries that benefit from the tariff. Meanwhile, your more competitive industries that are surviving without the tariff are losing markets. So it's a lose-lose proposition.
That's interesting. So Chris, let me ask you a question. You know, Joe comes to me and says, you know a good certified financial planner? Of course.
Yeah,
I say, Chris
so.
Calandra.
Yeah.
Of course. So Joe goes into your office. He says, hey, I'm going to do a little retirement plan A. I got a stock portfolio that involves some foreign countries. And what I heard on this panel that I was in today from my good friend Peter and my good friend Marc on the left side of my table here wasn't very encouraging for me. So anything that I've got invested in foreign stocks, let's do something about that. Chris, save me here.
So if I could respectfully disagree with each of them, I think Main Street Americans that I deal with, they agree with your premise, Jim, in that the idea that we're taking a stand and we're not going to be taken advantage of and we're going to get a better deal really resonates with Americans. Now, they might not know all of the intricacies of this. They may not know the dangers and keeping score of you might get a little bit here, but you might lose here. They probably don't. But I think this consumer confidence that we see, I mentioned earlier, that's at 18, 20-year highs, and the right track, wrong track survey shows that most Americans think the country is on the right track. Those numbers are very strong, and they've been improving. I think speaks to the idea that they like the idea, maybe not the details, but they like the idea that America is not going to be taken advantage of.
Okay, so let me carry that one step farther. So let's simulate this situation, right? With you having been on this panel today,
Yes.
with these two smart guys to the left of me who do know all the nuances, and you're sitting there with our boy Joe Markley, right? And you're looking at him because you've got newly acquired knowledge now, Chris. Are you still going to be saying to them, well, maybe we need to be a little bit more conservative with our foreign portfolio?
No, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, like he said, it's a lose-lose proposition. And I think compared to times in the past when negotiations mostly happened outside of the public eye, everything is in the public eye, and all sides use social media and the media as a voice for the negotiation, so it becomes a little scarier. But I think at the end of the day, it's the type of thing where there's the threat of a trade war and nobody wins in a trade war. It usually doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen here. If it does, it's bad, but the likelihood that it happens is really, really small. And if America ends up better off because we have changes in trade policy, that's what Americans are seeking, and I think it's part of the reason for this confidence, which leads into the economic growth.
Okay, so here I am. I'm sitting at the state Senate in Connecticut. There's Senator Markley sitting there, and I'm in economic development, and I'm testifying today. And I might also be coming from the state treasurer's office, and I'm testifying in front of you considering my pension funds, right? And I watched this show today, and I'm listening to Gioia over here, and I'm listening to Nemeth over here, and I'm listening to Chris, and you're listening to me from the economic development part in the pension fund, and I'm giving you this business about we ought to be investing more of our pensions in the foreign market, or the economic development department trying to recruit these foreign companies. Has any of this conversation affected you in terms of your priorities with them and what they do?
You know, it's a conversation that's been going on for a long time.
Really?
I was thinking, well, I think one of the fundamental conflicts in the American political history was over tariffs. And once upon a time, it was the basis virtually of the entire federal revenue. And it's funny, it's one of those issues that the parties have changed on over years. The Republicans once upon a time were the great party of protection and high tariffs, and they've tended to go in the free trade direction. And now the opposition to it tends to be from the two extremes. You have Ralph Nader and Pat Buchanan agreeing on high tariffs and everyone in between on the other side. I guess what I would say is, to my mind, it is, as much as I respect Peter, who I've known for a long time, I don't know that it's quite as clear in my mind as it is in his that the tariffs are necessarily a bad thing. I think it's something that's there's been an argument about, and there's likely to continue to be an argument about. And in the long run, I wouldn't, if I were sitting on that panel, I wouldn't let the tariffs determine which way I went.
All right, let's switch. The president is also ostensibly, these are my words, not his, going after NAFTA, and he already terminated the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Done. It's over, done with, right? Now he's negotiating with Canada and Mexico, who are the two countries with us, involved with us, in NAFTA, and he's going after them as well, under the same banner of, we've been getting ostensibly economically screwed, we've lost a lot of jobs, and in the word of, who was that guy who ran for president, the independent? The little guy, Ross Perot. Remember he said, the great sucking sound.